last question now. Sorry. You had the last question, so it's Senator Warren, we're back to you.
Good.
Okay, you can cut that part out when we actually, they don't need to hear that their teacher is a Liberty Gibbet. All right, Senator Warren. There's been a lot of discussion in the last 15 years about the security of our elections. How do you plan on protecting voting rights across the country and ensuring free and fair elections?
Our elections need to make sure that they are always chosen by the people, for the people. I want to make absolutely sure that all election boxes and stuff like that are always monitored 24/7, 365, but they're not, oh, but that's not cool here, but we want to make sure that they're always monitored, and we want to make sure that nothing ever comes in and out that is not an election, a thing put in by the people for their vote. I want to make sure that our elections are free and make sure that your vote counts.
Okay, how do you plan on combating the false information about voting security that's been happening in the last 20 years?
So, I want to make sure, so first of all, I would like to make sure, I will make my policy very clear. I'll make sure any federal regulator wants to come in and see my process.
You have a minute. That's
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I would make sure that any any part of the media wants to come in and see what our process looks like. If the people see exactly what the process looks like, it is less likely for lies to be spread about the process that is being done.
okay. Thank you. Senator Bradley.
Okay. First off, I want to start with our elections have to be fair because we want our president to be chosen by you, the people. And to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to have to require photo ID to vote. And now, before anyone brings up the argument about how it costs money, we're going to try and make it easier and more accessible to get a photo ID because this will solve two problems at once. It can stop illegal immigrants from voting, and because they shouldn't be able to vote, it's simple, they committed a crime. They should not be here. They should have done it legally. But yes, we need to make photo ID more accessible, and to talk about the misinformation on voting, we need to educate people on the process. So like he said, bring cameras into the rooms where the votes are being counted so the people can see the process. The people need to trust their government.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to refrain from clapping too much. You're eating too much of the time in the debate, which means that their constituents will not be able to hear actual questions. I appreciate the enthusiasm, but keep in mind that they have policies that need to be discussed. Senator Bradley, you just brought up one of the questions that we have about misinformation heading forward and working with the media. Actually, both of you mentioned working with the media to combat election interference situation. One of the concerns that we've seen in the last couple of years is a rising decrease in trust in the media. Do you believe that the government has a role to play in the media regaining the trust of the American public? And if so, how do you plan on combating that?
Okay, so I don't think censorship is the right option here to combat misinformation. Because I don't think the government should get involved in the media because that never turns out to be good. What the government should do, however, is educate the people on what is right. Because instead of censorship, that which violates the First Amendment very explicitly, we need to focus on education and persuasion of people what is right.
Okay, so Senator, it sounds like you're alluding to having a transparent government. Can I nail you down on that?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Senator Warren.
We want to make sure that our rights aren't being infringed upon. We want to make sure, so I want to make sure that the media is always telling the truth. However, I do not want to make sure, I don't want to censor them at all. That is, as he said, a violation of our First Amendment right. However, with the decrease of the amount of people who get their news from first-party sources like ABC, CBS, and stuff like that, there has been an increasing amount of people who get their news from over the internet. We believe that the internet is the way of the future within our party. The internet, we want to allow people, trusted news sources within the internet, to also be able to see these regulatory processes in action, and their people to see the people that watch them, to see that even they approve of our processes.
Okay, because I asked Senator Bradley, would you agree with government?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Senator Warren, one of the concerns that people have with the media is the goal, or is the concern of foreign interference. Do you believe that the government is going to have to increase its foreign role when it comes to international media or international interference in our elections and in our media processes?
I believe that a news station must disclose if it has been bought by a foreign company, a foreign nation, such as Russia, Iran, or China. We want to make, as long as the American people knows that the information given to them is brought to you by one of our foreign adversaries, they are less likely to listen to that news network and less likely to regard that information as truth and fact.
Thank you. Senator?
So while I do not believe that news stations should be controlled by the government, I can agree that if a country is caught lying about being entangled with a foreign country, then I think that should be a felony conviction, and they should have their news station taken down, because that is deceiving the people, and it should not happen in this country.
Thank you. Senator Bradley, we have a significant amount of questions about international relations and foreign relations. As president, you've put forward quite a few plans. Do you plan on focusing more domestically or internationally during your presidency?
No.
And why?
I would choose to focus on domestic affairs over international. While international is important, as I mentioned earlier with Ukraine and Russia war, I do think we have a lot of issues in our country. In our nation, you, the people, always need to come first.
Thank you. Senator?
I'm hoping to make a balance between our international and domestic affairs. As I agree with Mr. Bradley, we have a lot of issues within our current society in America. However, there's a lot of issues abroad. We want to make sure that Russia doesn't take control of Ukraine, because if we lack funding within that area, it could send a bad message to other people, other nations, such as China and Taiwan. If Taiwan were to fall to China, it would lead to a collapse within our chips industry, which is what makes those cameras possible to make. And we want to make sure that free people remain free.
Okay, thank you. Senator Warren, it sounds like you're advocating for an increase in free trade. Am I hearing you correctly?
Yes.
And what do you plan to do to advocate for free trade globally?
Free trade is one of the most important parts of a global order. It's a part of globalization. Free trade is able to make it so we can get things that are made somewhere else to our country at home. We want to make sure that the cheapest prices are in the U.S. stores such as Walmart or Costco. And we want to make sure that American people are ultimately served best with the cheapest possible products.
Thank you. Senator?
Remind me of the first question, please.
It's free trade, whether or not you'll be embracing free trade and how will you be doing so?
Okay, yes, I will be embracing free trade, but I'd like to go off a little off topic here. I do think that we need to bring everything back to America. We cannot rely on China to produce everything for us. So as president, I'm going to try and bring manufacturing back to our country. That will be my goal.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Senator Bradley, you did talk about bringing manufacturing back to the nation. Are you concerned that that would increase prices?
No, not at all actually, because first off, you don't have to pay for shipping things overseas is not cheap, regardless of the cheap labor that you're essentially enslaving people in foreign countries for, which is extremely messed up. But the cost to ship it overseas is not cheap, so it really does balance out. And besides, as we grow more manufacturing in America, the prices will naturally go down as there's more things being manufactured in our country. But we will not allow there to be a shortage of products. This will be a gradual transition from foreign to domestic.
Thank you. Senator Warren.
I believe that we need to have both people need to have both options. If you're willing to pay a slight extra amount for an American manufacturer, I wholeheartedly believe that you should have your right to do that. However, some people still ultimately want to have the cheaper product, which means that I ultimately believe that we should also have those products over here also.
Thank you. All right. Gentlemen, both of you have discussed in the last little while about the role that you plan on playing in the economy, the role that we plan on playing abroad. How do you envision the United States, Senator Warren, as participating on the global stage, either economically, in humanitarian areas, or in military conquest? Conquest may not be the right word, in military action. Forgive me.
That was very charged words.
America is meant to be the shining city on the hill. We want to be the example of what other nations need to follow. For our economy, we want to make sure that it is fair and equitable. We want to make sure that our people lower on the economy ladder still have the advantages to climb up that ladder and even reach the top of it if they work hard enough and have the right skills to do so. I believe that we need to make sure our democracy remains strong and to make sure that to be the example for other nations who aren't as democratic or authoritarian nation to become stronger, to become more democratic and less authoritarian.
Thank you. Senator Bradley?
So I believe that America is the greatest nation in the world, and I will never stop believing that. And I believe we have the potential to be great. I do think we need to make sure the American dream stays alive and bring opportunity to people who want to come here legally. And I do think we need to be a shining light for democracy, to be the example. And that's why I do believe we need to have fair elections. And so I just think that America needs to set the example for the world in every aspect imaginable.
Thank you. Senator Bradley, in the last couple of days, we have seen the fall of the tyrannical Assad regime in Syria, ending a 20-year civil war and causing a massive amount of instability and uncertainty to an already unstable region. As president, how do you envision the United States responding to that? Do you plan on getting us further involved? Do you plan on stepping aside?
I do plan on supporting any single country or group of people that will go against tyranny. So I do believe that we will support them and try and overcome and form their new democratic government.
Thank you. Senator.
We want to make sure that our allies within Syria remain safe. We want to make sure that the Free Syrian Army and the Kurds do not fall into tyranny. We want to, because we want to make sure our military bases within Syria remain good. Because there's still, according to my research last night, there's still pockets of ISIS that still remain within Syria, and we want to make sure that that doesn't spread. Also, the people who took Damascus from Assad, known as the HTS, are under the United States considered a terrorist organization, and their current founder was formerly linked with Al Qaeda and ISIS. We want to make sure that he doesn't spread those previous tyrannies that were under those previous regimes to the people of Syria.
Okay, thank you. All right, Senator Warren, just as a follow-up on that question, that leader, yes, you are correct. He has been linked to multiple terror organizations. He has been linked to terror organizations that have waged war against the United States. He has also been quoted in saying that he wants the new regime in Syria to be one of mercy and compassion and equality. Do you believe that there is an opportunity here for the United States to gain a new ally in an unstable region?
I of course believe that. However, I want to see his actions whenever he becomes leader before I listen to his words. I want to wait and see his actions that his nation, his current administration lays out, and I believe that will only be shown by time and patience.
Thank you, Senator.
So I do believe that we should, as he said, wait for him to reveal who he truly is as a leader before we make a decision on whether or not to support him. So.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bradley, this is the last question when it comes to foreign policy, then we'll move back to domestic issues. You did mention earlier about the concerns that we have in Ukraine, that with the growing concern of the ties of ongoing conflicts in the Middle East, how do you envision the United States military role specifically in that? Outside of funding, what do you plan on doing?
Okay, so first off, this is a very developing situation, and what I say now may not be the case in 2 months from now. But I do think that while we should decrease our financial investment, I do think we still need to stay informed, and if there is any signs of like a war escalating to more countries and starting World War III, I do think we get involved. I do think that we have to defend our country and the rest of the free world. But I agree that for now, we should stop authorizing the use of missiles. We are not trying to start a war, because I know Biden, President Biden, a few weeks ago authorized the use of missiles against Russia, and we do not want that to continue, and we do not want to start a war. But we will fight if need be.
Thank you. Senator Warren.
As you said, I still want to continue our action into Ukraine. However, I do not agree with the cutting of spending to Ukraine. If Ukraine falls, what kind of message does that send to the authoritarians across the world? It means that it sends the message that we are weak and powerless against their spreading of their tyranny across the globe. If Ukraine were to fall, that could send a message to China that we are willing to let Taiwan fall. So if we make sure Ukraine stays safe, we are making sure that the world stays safe.
Thank you. All right, Senator Warren, we're bringing it home. Coming back to domestic policy, we have seen a lot of chatter in the last few years about the legalization of marijuana. Do you plan on supporting that?
I wrote a bill for this exact thing whenever we were doing this. I full-heartedly agree with the legalization of marijuana. I plan on, if they were to ever come across onto my desk, I would sign it and I would pardon every single person in our current prisons who are under marijuana charges, except for distributors of the drug.
Okay, thank you. Senator?
So, I have my thoughts and opinions on marijuana, but I believe that I shouldn't, just because I'm president, I don't believe that I should force my personal thoughts and opinions on something to become the law of the land. I don't believe in that. I believe that it should be left up to the states, whether to decide whether marijuana should be legalized or not.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bradley, how do you plan on addressing the current, outside of marijuana, the current drug crisis in the United States?
Yes, I do think my immigration plan will slow that down, because we will not have as much cartel action going to America. I do think that will decrease it. That's my major plan to cut down on illegal drug crime.
Thank you. Senator?
As old drugs leave, new drugs come in new. A new drug could easily come by that is within America and does not stop by his border policy. I believe that if someone is caught with illegal substance such as fentanyl, I believe that they should be put into mandatory rehabilitation to make them clean. Because ultimately, a clean population is a successful population. A successful population leads to an amazing economy.
Thank you. All right, following along the same line, but in a more legal sense, there is a growing amount of concern as well about the cost of legal drugs, of life-saving drugs that people need, like the cost of EpiPens or insulin. How do you plan on addressing that?
Pharmaceutical companies are one of the greediest companies on earth. They will bleed us dry, hardworking Americans dry, just so they can remain healthy. I believe this is a crime against the American people, and I want to make sure that cap these costs, with of course making it so it would go up with the current rate of inflation, and make sure that the American people remain financially secure and make sure that they remain healthy also.
Thank you. Senator?
So as you know, as a Republican, I'm all about a laissez-faire, free economy. However, just like on all other issues, I am willing to compromise. I do believe that just like on the insulin cap, I do believe that we need to cap the greedy pharmaceutical companies, because sometimes too much free market is too bad. So I do think we need to have some regulations. At some point it has to stop. The greed has to stop.
Okay, thank you. All right. Senator Bradley, what are your funding plans when it comes to distributing your budget among education, healthcare, and the military?
Okay, so for healthcare, we are not going to take away Medicare or Medicaid. However, it just simply may not be realistic to give it to everyone, given our current budget crisis. I mean, we are over $30 trillion in debt. You saw what Keller ISD had to do. They had to cut so many costs to get out of their $27 million deficit. They had to cut teachers. They had to cut expenses on programs. So I do think we may have to make hard decisions, but I promise I'm not taking away Social Security, and I will not take away Medicare and Medicaid.
Okay, thank you. Senator?
I agree with Senator Bradley. Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security is a right that every American should have. However, as Senator Bradley may know, we are being bled dry by our current medical industries. I propose an idea that may be controversial. A government-funded insurance company for medical medicine that people pay into every year. People pay into this program and make sure that we are getting the American people are getting their money back, and make sure that evil corporations don't just take their Americans' money and spend it on themselves.
Senator, follow-up, is this a mandatory program, or is this a
No.
voluntary insurance
Voluntary.
program that people could use?
It's voluntary.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of voluntary programs, how do you plan on improving educational standards in the United States?
Education is one of the most important foundations of a healthy democracy. The more informed our population is, the better off our democracy is. I'm saddened to see the rate of education and the average intelligence that I feel has overall gone down as we have become a less informed population. I believe this starts at the roots of our educational system. I would hope and pray that we can increase funding across the board per student to our schools. I would hope that states would be willing to increase these prices across the board to make sure our schools are better funded.
Thank you.
So I agree that in order to have a successful nation, you do have to have educated people. And I'm very disappointed that the United States has fallen behind our rival nations in terms of education. So what I propose is tax breaks to states that have high education results. And I do think we should reward those states, which will be an incentive for them to focus more on education.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bradley, do you plan on extending these to higher education institutions as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay, would you care to elaborate as to your plan for higher education?
You know, for higher education, I do believe that as those are private businesses, they do have their rights. But I do think they need to be held in check on their, because they essentially have a monopoly on the education. So I do think that as a monopoly, they should be held in check. So I do think that we should cap the price for what a specific institution can charge for their students based on how many students go there and the quality of their academics.
Thank you. Senator?
I support the ideas that Senator Bradley is bringing up. However, I would only expand it to our publicly funded colleges. If it is privately funded and not helped out by the United States, the federal United States government, I believe that they should be allowed to charge as they wish. But if it is publicly funded, I do and wholeheartedly agree that there should be a cap to how high we are willing to bring up tuition.
Thank you. We have a couple more rounds of questions, just to let you know we are about to wind down. If you've been online at all in the last couple of weeks, you have seen the inordinate amount of chatter. We have a nation that is hurting. We have a nation that is extremely concerned, and the assassination of the CEO of United Healthcare definitely has...
A government-funded insurance company for medical medicine that people pay into every year. People pay into this program and make sure that we are getting the American people are getting their money back, and make sure that evil corporations don't just take their Americans' money and spend it on themselves.
Senator, follow-up, is this a mandatory program, or is this a
No.
voluntary insurance
Voluntary.
program that people could use?
It's voluntary.
Okay, thank you. Speaking of voluntary programs, how do you plan on improving educational standards in the United States?
education is one of the most important foundations of a healthy democracy. The more informed our population is, the better off our democracy is. I'm saddened to see the rate of education and the average intelligence that I feel has overall gone down as we have become a less informed population. I believe this starts at the roots of our educational system. I would hope and pray that we can increase funding across the board per student to our schools. I would hope that states would be willing to increase these prices across the board to make sure our schools are better funded.
Thank you.
So I agree that in order to have a successful nation, you do have to have educated people. And I'm very disappointed that the United States has fallen behind our rival nations in terms of education. So what I propose is tax breaks to states that have high education results. And I do think we should reward those states, which will be an incentive for them to focus more on education.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bradley, do you plan on extending these to higher education institutions as well?
Yes, I do.
Okay, would you care to elaborate as to your plan for higher education?
You know, for higher education, I do believe that as those are private businesses, they do have their rights. But I do think they need to be held in check on their, because they essentially have a monopoly on the education. So I do think that as a monopoly, they should be held in check. So I do think that we should cap the price for what a specific institution can charge for their students based on how many students go there and the quality of their academics.
Thank you. Senator?
I support the ideas that Senator Bradley is bringing up. However, I would only expand it to our publicly funded colleges. If it is privately funded and not helped out by the United States, the federal United States government, I believe that they should be allowed to charge as they wish. But if it is publicly funded, I do and wholeheartedly agree that there should be a cap to how high we are willing to bring up tuition.
Okay, thank you. We have a couple more rounds of questions, just to let you know we are about to wind down. If you've been online at all in the last couple of weeks, you have seen the inordinate amount of chatter. We have a nation that is hurting. We have a nation that is extremely concerned, and the assassination of the CEO of United Healthcare definitely has shone a light on that pain. Senator Warren, how do you plan on addressing that pain with the United States and helping individuals feel better when they don't feel like they have a shot at proper health care?
I think this only emboldens my health care plan. The people will ultimately hate our health insurance companies. They hope if the shooter should be shown for anything, it should be that ultimately our flawed insurance system. This is why I believe that we should have, and if you want to opt in, we should have a government-funded insurance company that is not obligated to make any sort of money. It's obligated to break even, and that is it. If I see us going to $1 or -$1, it will not be good, and I will not support it.
Thank you. Senator?
You know that as a Republican, I do not necessarily wholeheartedly believe in on things being controlled by the government, like a private health insurance thing. Because what if they do more than break even? What if they turn corrupt too, and then we're back to square one? That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bradley, apologize for that. Do you plan, scratch that. How do you plan, as president, and acting independently as a nation without relying on other nations, how do you plan on addressing the climate change concerns that the world is facing?
So I do think that for climate change, operating just in our nation, because ultimately that's what we have control over, is our country. We can encourage other nations to take initiatives, but ultimately we as a country need to take action for ourselves. And so what I propose for reducing climate change is initiatives for clean energy, for solar energy, for all for all sorts of renewable energies to help decrease our carbon emissions. So what I'm proposing is tax breaks to people who, for example, purchase solar panels, use nuclear energy, all of that stuff. So that's my plan.
Okay, thank you. Senator?
My plan to address climate change is to heavily invest in it, because if we are unable to invest in it and make it cheaper, every nation on earth will be encouraged to buy clean energy. I plan on doing this by heavily bringing our funding into nuclear. Nuclear is by far the most land efficient thing that we can, out of all the clean energies, and it lacks the CO2 emissions of oil or natural gas. We want to make sure that we reach net zero by 2050, and nuclear is by far the most land efficient of all of the clean energy options. I still plan on investing into other areas of clean energy. However, I believe that nuclear should be more heavily invested to.
Thank you. What are your top priorities for your first 100 days in office?
I want to make sure that legislation is put into effect that will hopefully stay within the United States for the next coming decades. This involves my environmental policy, as you guys have just heard. I want to invest into nuclear, and also I want to make sure that legal immigrants want to come in. So I want to make sure that our economy is good, and I want to make sure, according to the Fed, to increase interest rates so we can help start mending our interest rates.
Thank you. Senator Bradley?
Okay, so this is about what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. What I am going to do is implement my plan as I described earlier, get legislation done to secure the border, and also give legal immigrants a chance to enter our country legally. But I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to be corrupt. I'm not going to appoint Supreme Court justices that are just going to serve my interests. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play the game. I'm just going to do what's best for y'all.
Thank you. Senator, how do you plan on addressing the current partisan rift in the United States?
So my entire platform, as you've probably seen the We the People ads, my entire platform is about restoring the power to the people and how I'm going to do that is by being fair, willing to compromise with the Democrats, and I'm going to push hard for bipartisan support on all of my issues, and the more bipartisan bills that we have when I'm in office, the more successful I think we are as a nation.
Thank you.
Ultimately, our government is a reflection of the people. Our people are divided at the current moment. We have a hard time agreeing on almost anything. And under my policies, I want to make sure that our people are able to agree on more things. I want to make sure that everything is passed bipartisanly. However, I want to move towards a country who is able to agree with themselves and not just listen to what is bouncing off the walls in their echo chamber.
Thank you. All right. Senator Warren, why did you want to run?
Ultimately, I believe that the American people should come first. The American people need a leader who's willing to address the hard issues of our times. I believe that the policies that I've shown so far should let the people know that I'm willing to implement change within our nation and bring it so that we have a more prosperous future.
Thank you. Senator Bradley?
I decided to run because I am quite frankly disgusted with the way that our country has become so polarized and how it seems like it's no longer politicians versus the issue. It's just politician versus politician. And I'm here to end that. I am not going to try and just do what's best for the Republican Party. I'm going to compromise on issues with the Democrats. And I'm not here to play political games. I'm here to do what's best for you. And I'm trying to end corruption in this government. And it's going to take a lot of work, but that is my end goal. Because I'm tired of seeing the divisive country that we have now.
Senator, a question, and then we'll move to closing statements. How do you plan on balancing inclusivity and collaboration among all United States, while also addressing the specific concerns from individual groups?
So I do believe that the United States, one of the key goals of the United States is to be inclusive to people. I do think that we need to welcome everyone else to our nation legally. I do think that we need to, I do think that inclusion is a very important tenet of our democracy.
Thank you. Senator?
I believe that every single voice in America should be heard. I believe that it should not be decided by the color of your skin, however by the content of your character. I want to make sure that we ultimately are not deciding our positions based off the color of your skin by the merit of your character.
Thank you. All right. Senator Warren, you have 1 minute for your closing statement.
I'm running for you guys. For all the people across this great nation, I want to make sure that you are protected and that you are heard. Across my history, I've always wanted to make sure that every single person, poor, rich, or in the middle, is made sure that we are safe, that they are safe, and they are prospering. I want to make sure that all the citizens within the United States feel safe and don't even question America in the future, because the future of America seems so good that we want to make sure, you'd be wondering why we'd ever have problems within the future of our nation. And I want to build upon this. I want to make sure that our nation is the best on earth, and I want to make sure to continue to elevate us beyond what is expected of most nations. And I believe under my administration, I'd be able to do that.
Thank you. Senator Bradley, you have 1 minute.
As I mentioned earlier, I'm simply disgusted with what this country has become with the division and the corruption in government. Corruption in government have been married since the dawn of time, but I'm here to divorce that. So my goal is not to win for my party, it is to win for you, the American people. I want to end corruption. I'm willing to compromise. That is the key thing here. I'm not here to do what's best for them. I want to do what's best for you. I want to compromise on issues. I want bipartisan support, and I do think that we can get it done. We can stop the division in this country. We can get people to stop hating each other just because of the color that they support, whether that be red, blue, or green, or whatever independents there are. But yes, that is my end goal, to do what's best for y'all, not what's best for me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our debate. You can give our candidates a round of applause. Go do it again. You went too fast. I didn't get a picture. I need pictures.
Hey, dude.
Go ahead, shake hands. Oh my word, shake hands. Okay, thank you. All right, another round of applause. Good job, guys. Okay, you have about 15-20 minutes left. At this point, number one, candidates, you should probably move to the third debate of the 2025 presidential elections at Timber Creek High School. Today, we are going to be hearing from our two second period candidates. We have Senator Nyjah Warren from Nevada. And Senator Joseph Bradley from Oklahoma. Candidates have been informed of the rules in the hallway, but for our audience, just to give you a reminder, each candidate will be asked a series of questions. They will have 2 minutes to respond, and their opponent will get a 1-minute rebuttal to those questions. We do not have opening statements. However, there will be a 1-minute closing statement at the end of the debate. According to the coin toss in the hall, Senator Joseph Bradley has elected to go last. Senator Warren. You have had a very active social media presence in this campaign, and one of the concerns that American people have is the presence of artificial intelligence in the social media sector. As AI grows increasingly advanced, how do you plan to limit AI or regulate it?
AI is one of the most important tools that is going to be helping us within our future. AI, I believe, is going to help us advance Americans advance further and further into our future. I believe that in very little regulations into AI for civilian use only. However, I believe that we need to make AI not allowed within certain areas. This includes areas where there is high threat of making it a failure. This includes places like nuclear power plants, where if a meltdown were to happen, it would kill thousands of civilians, or nuclear facilities where our bombs are at. So I want to make sure that our civilians remain safe. However, I want to make sure that this technology is able to flourish into our future.
Thank you. Senator Bradley?
So I can agree with him on that that AI is a very, very big part of our future, and it will definitely help humankind a lot going forward. And I do believe that there should be little regulation for civilian use. And we cannot let AI get into the wrong hands, however. We need some restrictions on government agencies and terrorists and all those things, because we cannot allow for AI to become a weapon for people who want to destroy us. However, I do think that there are more important issues here, because I don't think we're far enough ahead into the future to be worried about AI taking over or anything like that. So, that's my response.
Thank you. Senator Bradley, what do you plan to do when it comes to the increasing debate about intellectual property and intellectual property rights in the United States?
So I do believe that your intellectual property is yours. I mean, that plain and simple, that no one should be able to take that away from you. That's, yeah, your property is yours. The government should not have any say on what you do with it. That's my response.
A follow-up, do you plan on extending that to corporations as well?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Senator?
I believe that, I do agree with you that a person's intellectual property is their own. However, I disagree with how long this intellectual property is held for before it goes into the public domain. But we have only seen the increase of this throughout the time our history as a country. This is due to the fact of our corporate overlords buying out our senators and making it so they raise it over time. I believe that it should only be held for up to 70 years. The current amount of time is 95. I would wish to lower this to 70.
Okay, thank you. Senator Warren. Actually, an interesting question that your sixth period would like to know. Could you name a policy that you agree with from the Republican Party, and do you plan to continue that policy?
Of course. As many of you have seen, Mr. Bradley has posted his healthcare plan on his Instagram. I believe that most of it is very good. I believe in capping out medical prices, and I believe in making sure Social Security is maintained within our nation.
Okay, thank you. Senator Bradley, is there something that you agree with from the Democratic Party?
Well, yes. I was actually looking through his policies and his Instagram. I couldn't find much specifics, but there is one opinion that I do agree with. I do believe that tariffs are bad for us, and we should not increase the tariffs, because that will just make inflation go up more. So I do agree with that.
Okay. So, Senator Bradley, you say that you are against tariffs. How do you plan on improving the economy if you are elected?
Yes. So overall, the ultimate goal for improving the economy is to cut unnecessary costs. So here's some examples of that. First of all, my plan is to limit our donations to Ukraine. While I do understand it is an extremely important proxy war for us, and that we cannot allow the spread of communism and we cannot get into another Cold War, but I do believe we need to cap donations to Ukraine at $15 billion per year. Right now we're averaging over $50 billion per year. That will lower our spending so much. And overall, the ultimate goal for the economy is to cut costs and increase government revenue. And part of my illegal immigration plan, which I'll get into later, that will help us increase our revenue too by finding illegal immigrants already in the country.
Okay, thank you. Senator?
Correct. Bradley real quick. We're not fighting the spread of communism in Russia. Russia is not currently a communist state. However, as its plan in Ukraine, I think, is not great. This is because we have sent Ukraine over the past 2 years approximately $60 billion worth of military aid. Unlike the $50 billion a year he says currently is that we've sent per year. I believe that we have found more effective ways within our own economy, our own military, to cut. We have a process of middlemen who have been depriving our American army of crucial resources. By example, making so garbage cans cost over $800 per can. If a garbage can costs $800 per can, I don't know where you're buying that from.
Senator Warren, how do you plan addressing the inflated costs in the military, though? Will those be addressed under your administration?
Yes, the inflated military cost is mainly due to the middlemen within the U.S. within our army. Our army is currently run by people such as Lockheed Martin. These people are military contractors who are supplying us with missiles and tanks and so on. We want to make sure that we are getting fair cost for these products and not overly expanding and making sure that we get ripped off with these deals.
Thank you. Senator Bradley?
Yes, I plan on addressing the rising costs for the government, or for the military, by, as he said, addressing the middlemen. While we do need to make sure these companies are allowed to thrive, there does need to be some regulation on them price gouging and inflating costs. So that's my opinion on that.
Thank you. Senator Bradley, how do you plan on enforcing or on fighting the rising inflation in the United States? Latest report came out yesterday that inflation indeed rose after the presidential election. How do you plan on fighting that, and what are you going to do with the role of inflation and the national debt?
So, very simple. As I talked about earlier, we're going to improve the national debt because the fact is it is far too high. It's over $30 trillion at the moment. And we got to increase our revenue in the government, and we're going to have to cut some costs. That could include making difficult decisions, like cutting some unnecessary government jobs. There are over 3 million government jobs right now, and I mean, we just can't pay everyone, really. But ultimately the goal is to increase our nation's revenue in order to fight inflation and our national debt.
Okay, point of clarification, sir. You have said multiple times now that you want to see the United States government increase their revenue, but you're against tariffs. How do you propose doing so? Will you
Okay.
be raising taxes?
No.
Okay, how do you propose doing so? Ladies and gentlemen, I will
Well-
remove you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, like I said, this is getting into my illegal immigration plan. So for my plan for migrants that are illegally into our country is to fine them for, because the thing is they broke the law, they deserve the punishment for their crimes, plain and simple. I think a deportation operation or building a wall would be too expensive, it's a waste of money. So I'm not going to do that. What I will do, however, is fine them, which will help us improve our total money in America.
Okay, thank you. Senator?
I'd like to point
Back
out-
to the initial
Okay.
question. I apologize. The question was, what policies do you plan on enforcing to fight rising inflation and decrease national debt?
Painful decisions, painful problems come with painful solutions. I propose on increasing interest rates across the U.S. economy. This will make it so borrowing will become less and make it so our prices are able to be, our inflation is able to go down and make it so prices over time go down less.
Thank you. All right, Senator Warren. One of the concerns with the economy is the tide of immigrants coming across the nation. How do you plan on handling the border crisis, and what will you do to encourage legal immigration?
So I'll answer this question backwards. Legal immigration within the United States is one of our most important features. Legal immigration lets us bring all the brightest minds across the world into the American economy. To make it so we do this, I want to be I want to make sure that our economy is thriving and make sure that we can offer the best jobs for the best people within across the world. To make sure that illegal immigrants don't enter our border, I want to increase the amount of the border guards across the border and make it so it's more heavily funded. To make sure that our border guards are able to do their job as they so need.
Thank you. Senator Bradley.
So diving a little bit deeper into my policy for stopping illegal immigration, I do agree with him that we need to increase border security and bring more border patrol to the border to stop the flow of illegal immigration. Because in theory, the idea of bringing the brightest minds from all over the world into our country is a good thing, but it comes with unintended consequences. It comes with crime, drug cartels, and all sorts of terrible things.
Yeah.
So it has to be limited, it has to be regulated, we have to secure the border. But we're not going to build a wall. That's a waste of money, and we're not going to do a mass deportation operation. Like I said, the fines, and which could be converted to community service, but we want to avoid prison time because that would just spend more money and we wouldn't be able to house that many inmates. But yes, that's my plan for the border.
Thank you. Senator Bradley. One of the concerns that most Americans face is the rising cost of food, the rising cost of groceries, and the rising cost of gas. And unfortunately, immigration does play a significant role in that, as illegal immigrants fill most of those jobs that Americans don't want. How do we balance that? What is your plan for that?
See, that's exactly why I don't want to deport the illegal immigrants. The fact is, there are so many illegal immigrants serving in important jobs. I mean, I even know one of my uncles owns a business, and he employs illegal immigrants too. He would lose some of his workforce, but yeah, no, that's definitely, and also because I'm not going to implement tariffs, because tariffs increase consumer prices. So that's how I'm going to help combat that.
Thank you.
The rising cost of living is an unfortunate state of our current state within America. Under my proposition, I've proposed to raise minimum wage to $10 an hour. With this, I'm also making it so it keeps up with the current rate of inflation. Each year, it rises according to inflation, the rate of inflation every year. So I want to make sure that our lowest areas within the U.S. is still able to keep up with the rising rate of inflation within their job loss.
Thank you. Senator Warren, we've actually seen growing bipartisan support in the last couple of years for a movement to prevent tips from being taxed. Would you support this movement?
I would support this movement, yes, because tips are ultimately you giving your waiter or waitress the money that you think they deserve for doing good at their job. I don't believe that the government should be taking away from people doing good at their job. I want you to do the best at your job to make sure that you get the most money that you deserve from your people.
Thank you.
We should absolutely not tax tips. That is your money that you are deciding to give to someone. It's no different than me just handing out some money to here right here. It's just money that you give someone as a gift for doing a good job, and that should never be taxed.
Okay, thank you. All right. Yeah, pause. We need to swap our